today's episode, we're going to explore the Cherokee National Forest and the Ocoee River. Seeing as I've spent the last few years in Dublin and different parts of Europe, haven't had a whole lot of chance and opportunity to get out into nature, into the wilderness. There's a few spots in Ireland, outside of Dublin, where you can go, but nothing quite like the Smoky Mountains that I grew up in. This past weekend, some of my family and I got together and took a few different trips down these different parts of the Ocoee. So first we took some kayaks, went down the lower, fairly easy, almost no rapids at all, more or less floating along. But then we went and took a trip down the middle, which is considered relatively difficult. Each section of the river is separated by different dams. So there's a dam up at the top, which controls the upper, which we're looking at here. Second, we have the middle section, which runs more days of the week. In between the middle and the lower section, there's actually a fairly large lake. Now, this wasn't always a lake. It used to be a valley where people lived and there were farms and houses and everything in between. But once they needed to create the dam in order to produce the hydro powers and power stations, they dammed up this entire valley and therefore flooded the system. If you've ever seen Oh Brother Where Art Thou, the main premise of the movie is that he's trying to get back to his house where they're about to flood this valley. That's the same exact thing that happened here to create the lake, which sits in between the middle Ocoee and the lower Ocoee. Since they only run the river on the weekends, you can see that now it is much, much calmer than it would be in order to take rafts down the river. This is an especially common location to do for 4th of July. So since 4th of July is quickly approaching, if we come back here on that weekend, or specifically the weekend after, the days after, there will be a lot of people here. So I can think of many, many summers where we would come down here and you can basically swim, and there's a few different little rock slide type areas. And so especially as a young kid, it's an awesome place to come and spend 4th of July. At one point during the 70s, they had to shut down one of the power plants, which allowed all the water to flow through, and obviously that sparked what became the thriving industry of the whitewater rafting trips and any public consumption of the whitewater rafting activities. Ocoee number 2, or Ocoee Dam number 2, is connected to a powerhouse much further along down the river. However, this dam is primarily used as the put-in for the rafts, such as you can see here. A group of them will get together from the same company, all putting together, and then help each other work their way down the river in case somebody flips or somebody falls out. Most of these rapids are notoriously difficult to get to because the only way to access them is by parking on the side of the road. A few of the more famous rapids have accessibility here on the side, but just barely enough for a few people to park and then get down to take some photographs. What you're seeing now is probably one of the more famous, at least more referenced rapids on the Ocoee. Particularly useful because it has a accessible path down to the rapid where photographers will come down and get shots of people at this rapid. This rapid is actually called Broken Nose, specifically because there was a kayaker who went upside down at the rapid and, as you might have guessed, broke his nose. is what's called Dam Number 1. Behind it is what's actually the entire lake, which was flooded, replacing all of the valley and even the part of housing and farms that were present prior to the dam going up. It's the furthest downstream, so everything downstream of this dam is the lower Ocoee, which is fairly flat and not much rapids, but eventually meets up with the Ocoee River and then eventually into the Tennessee.